Okay, so the expression is compelling interest. That the courts will permit the federal government to limit rights and liberties when the state can demonstrate that it has a compelling interest. That's the phrase they use in court. What does compelling interest mean?
Like it actually show like interest in it, basically, like you express something.
The compelling part is key.
Moral?
Pardon?
Moral.
Translated loosely, it would just be a really important reason. You can limit somebody's freedoms or liberties if you have a compelling reason, a really important reason to limit somebody's liberties. The state, if it wants to limit our freedom of speech, for example, has to demonstrate that there's an important reason.
Can the federal government do that, or just the state?
Federal government and state government. So that's why it'll permit the federal or state government, and this is true actually, Julio, of the city government as well. Anytime they want to limit our freedom, our liberties, they have to demonstrate, that's what the courts are saying. What is the compelling interest? What is the important reason for limiting our right? Ferris.
Wait, first question is it legal for the president to suspend habeas corpus?
No.
Okay.
The president cannot suspend habeas corpus.
There goes the rest of it.
Okay, right. There's nothing in the Constitution that gave Abraham Lincoln the authority to do
That's
that.
what I was thinking.
He did it.
Compelling
Because he was
interest.
a bomb.
No. This is if somebody brings a court case and they say the government's limiting my freedoms. What the courts will ask the government to do is explain what the compelling interest is. What is the compelling reason to limit somebody's liberties? If the state can't do that, when I say the state, I'm sorry, Julio, this probably when I say the state, I mean all governments. We refer to the state as just the government. So any government has to demonstrate that there's a compelling interest. There's an important reason to limit our liberties. So I want to talk about some of the cases and some of the limitations that the courts have made or permitted on our liberties. So let's talk about freedom of religion first. And the Establishment Clause. We talked about the Establishment Clause before. What does the Establishment Clause basically say?
Something to start with fewer.
Favor one of those.
Or no, it was favor.
Yeah, the government cannot favor one religion over another. It cannot help to establish a religion. It can't make it harder for another religion to succeed. Right? So, there was a case. So first, finish writing that down. Right. There was a case where some people were doing prayer in school, in public school. The courts ruled that that is unconstitutional. That you should be writing that's unconstitutional right there.
If it's led by the administration, if it's
in public school, if it's in a public school which is paid for with taxes, then essentially it is the government supporting it. So you can't do prayer in school. You can if you allow every group that wants to join. You can have student groups on campus, but it can't be anybody who's getting paid by the government, a teacher, an administrator, or anybody like that. And again, the argument is that that would be the state going ahead and supporting a religion. It's our taxpayers. Go ahead.
All right. At my political science and CSUN class, we studied a case that had to do with a kid that wore a shirt to school, and he was asked to take it, take it off, and then he said no, and he sued him. I think it was like either a state or federal. I couldn't remember what it went to.
It would have been state.
Okay. Do you know anything about this?
No.
Okay.
I know that my daughter once went to school with a shirt on that said "Racism sucks," and they made her take it off and turn it inside out because they didn't like "sucks" on her shirt. The fact that it said "Racism sucks" didn't matter. They made her turn the shirt around. Crazy. The message was a good message. It was like, okay.
Did they want sucked? Was this in proper English?
Yeah, they just wanted her to walk around with something. They said if she covered up sucks, it would be okay. So she could walk around with a shirt that just said racism.
Racism.
But you couldn't have. Is that?
That would have been great. That would have
totally.
She should have done that.
I don't know. She should have just tried different, like crazy.
Call her bluff. Because she would have done that, they would be like, oh no, you can't wear that either. You know?
I think Kim is right. She should have just tried different words, like come back the next day with "racism stinks." How's that? Racism is really abhorrent. Can I wear that? Not sucks though.
Because you just.
What you should have done is you should have embarrassed him. What's the problem with sucks? I don't understand. Just start grilling. Why do you think sucks is a problem? What are you getting at? Okay, student-led prayer. Student-led prayer before a high school football game. Unconstitutional.
Really?
If you're at a football game. Now, by the way,
Is it only because it's on school campus?
because it's on school grounds. Texas, they do it anyways because they're a separate country. So
So if someone complained, like,
that would be considered
because
unconstitutional.
I play football every in the locker room before every game we pray.
In the locker room, you can do it right by yourselves, but the coach
No, as
can't.
a team we did it.
Right, but the coach cannot participate.
They were all there.
Right. I'm just telling you what the law says. Like I say, in did you play football in Texas?
No.
Oh,
Last year queer. Texas, only 2 days. Never mind. We'll talk later.
Okay. Let's not and pretend we
We're
did.
rolling.
Moment of silence before a football game. These are all public schools. You can have a moment of silence before a football game. So if somebody gets up and they want to lead a moment of silence, then you can do that because that's not necessarily supporting a religion. And so they say the government can do that. There was a very interesting case. So that is constitutional. There was a very interesting case a while back that had to do with displaying religious symbols on public property. Can you display religious symbols on public property? And there were 2 separate cases that were going on at the same time. In one case, there was a display in Kentucky. What this judge had done is he had gotten like a granite statue of the 10 Commandments and stuck it in the middle of the lobby at the Supreme Court house in Kentucky. So when you walked into the Supreme Court of Kentucky, there were the 10 Commandments there.
So I'm guessing he was Jew.
So, pardon?
Was he Jew?
No, he was Christian. It's both. They all share that both. Everybody shares that. In Texas, there was a park in Texas that had a picture, had a statue or like a cross, a crucifix in this park that was a public park in Texas. And the lower courts had said that this was okay and this was not. So in Kentucky they said, well, hold on, don't write anything yet. The courts said this was okay, this was not okay, and this was. So the Supreme Court called both cases up and said, we're just going to make one rule. And they agreed with the lower courts. They said, showing the 10 Commandments in a courtroom where the public is a violation of the Establishment Clause. They said that there is a non-secular purpose. There's a religious purpose for that. It's to teach a moral code.
Couldn't you argue that it's just showing laws?
But it's not showing laws. It's showing religious values. They said in the Texas display where they had the crucifix, what it was the park was dedicated to going ahead and teaching people about Texas history. And the role of the missions in Texas was really important. And so in one of the displays that talked about the missions, they had a crucifix. And so they said the goal here was secular. It was a non-religious purpose. And so this was constitutional. This was not. This was essentially, they said, a religious display to teach people a certain moral code. They said this one was non-religious. It was mostly trying to teach people history. Go ahead.
Did anyone ever take the Pledge of Allegiance to the Supreme Court?
No, they haven't. One of the things that Congress did is because they're the ones who create the courts, they passed a law that said that the courts do not have jurisdiction over cases having to do with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Like specifically?
I heard they don't do it anymore.
Yeah, you just have to stand up. I know that, but you don't have to say it.
Yeah, but
You never had to say it. But
the courts have specifically passed laws limiting the jurisdiction of the federal courts.
and it's never done.
No.
In elementary school, we had to do it.
Yeah, we had to do it.
There was no.
I mean, you could not. I don't know what happened if you didn't do it. Did anybody refuse to
got
say?
sent to the principal's office.
What happened? What happened? Yeah, I think my son didn't do it either, or maybe my son or my daughter wouldn't do the under God thing. So, but nobody ever got
The teachers don't hear you.
right. That all presumes that the teachers are paying attention when you're saying the pledge. We all know that that's not true. Okay, so those are examples of how the courts have ruled on the question of freedom of religion and the Establishment Clause.